Yeah, I was looking at the chat a little bit. Yeah, if you're interested in more recordings or articles or such, there are plenty on the FX Street website. There's more on the Online Trading Academy site, so it's just tradingacademy.com. But, we go over plenty here. All right, so let's take a look. Let's start with the daily chart of the U.S. dollar. The focus today is swing trading the Forex market. A lot of people think that the Forex markets are just great day trading markets. They are. But I think they're phenomenal kind of longer-term swing trading markets as well. Okay. Igor, all right. I see that. I see you put a link in there. If you want, feel free to send me that in an email. That might even be better. Okay, take a look at the dollar daily chart. So if you remember last time, our last session, we focused on this demand level right up in here. Okay, remember last time we were here, we had this area right here. Okay, we had a nice bounce off that level. Now, because you just kind of touched the level and turned, now we've adjusted the lines a few days ago, and now prices come into the level yesterday and shooting out of here today. I know I always say this, but it's just so important. I want to remind you one more time. Make sure you're constantly, you always have a chart up of the U.S. dollar, larger time frame. Okay, these types of levels they don't get hit that often, and don't show up that often. When they do, it's pretty significant. So where's the dollar go from here? Well, keep in mind that below current price, right here, you're going to have some speed bumps of demand in here. So even if it went lower, you probably still, you're going to have some demand sitting just down here. But how high can it go? All right, we've been up here before. There's been a lot of orders being filled up here. Okay. Jake, I see your comment. I would say it's more people, the people that are trapped are the people that bought down or sold down here. Remember the basics. Supply and demand, where banks and institutions are buying and selling. But remember that step number 2 also. Understanding who is on the other side of our trade, that novice trader. So yes, when that novice market speculator sells down here, they're trapped. The only way they can get out of that position, that losing position, which they have to do, is buy back their position. So that helps get the buying underway. Make sense? All right. But we'll try to talk more about that. Let's go to the weekly time frame. And when we look above, okay, notice price has got, let me blow this up a little bit. Price has been hung up here because we did have some supply here. I mean, let's just face it, we've had this level here for a while. But I would say that we've probably eaten through most of that supply, which suggests that the dollar can go higher. Okay. 86, George, we'll take a look at that. So on the weekly, right, the chart is suggesting that the dollar can go higher. Now let's go back to the daily. So how high can it go? Can it go above this 84? Well, we want to look, the way we do the analysis, just to kind of train you, inside this circled area there's probably something, but I'm not going to see it on a weekly. So we'll go down to a daily chart and look inside that weekly area. Okay. Let's do that here. There it is. So do we find something by going down to the daily? Yeah, exactly, George. Nice one. Exactly. And you found it, so good job. Okay, but do you see how we didn't see anything like that on the weekly by looking at the weekly? That's what's key. So nice job there. You are getting good at this. Okay. I would say that comes up just before 86, and because it appears to be a significant level, the first time back, you're probably not even going to get up there. So we're sitting at 82 and a quarter right now, but I want to see if this was hit yet either. Okay, I would say around 84. Oh, never mind. We've gone up to 84 already. That's all used up. So yeah, there's nothing fresh until 85.70, and we're at 82.20-ish. So there's plenty of room. Is that going to happen overnight? Not likely. And We've been down to this level a couple of times, so price can come down here too. But the main thing is knowing where the levels are and where price is going to turn, and then where price is going to go is a function of knowing where the levels are in between the levels. Now, before we get into FX, I wanted to bring your attention to another market. Take a look at this. A lot of people haven't seen this. So I'm actually going to bring up a larger time frame chart of the NASDAQ. Okay. When we look at the daily chart, you see how for many months price was just chopping around here sideways, right? The last few months really not going anywhere. Then we just had a little blip up to the upside, but again, we're kind of stuck, right? It's not just kind of not going anywhere for about 3-4 days now. Take a look. When we go to the weekly, you're going to see one of the best supply levels I've seen in a while. Okay. Take a look at this level here. So this is in the cash NASDAQ, right? The comp, the index. There's the top line. There's the bottom line. And can you see how we've just barely scratched the surface of this level? Okay. So again, just kind of lining up. Remember, the theme of the session we have here today is swing trading, longer term stuff. And so we're starting we've got these pieces of a puzzle, and we're starting to put the puzzle together. The daily, a dollar on the larger time frames. We've got the levels there. We see there's no significant supply for about quite a bit higher, about 4 full points. And with the NASDAQ sitting at supply, dollar just coming out of demand, the charts kind of put the puzzle together for us, right? Okay, so be careful. It looks like the NASDAQ just broke out the other day. If you're just looking at any other time frame or news or anything else, it appears that the stock markets around the world have just broken out to this new high, and the next leg up is going to happen. Well, be careful with that thought. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Put that back on the dollar, and we'll move on from there. And let's start with, we can start with any FX market. Why don't we just start with the yen since it's up here. I'm sure plenty of you have looked at the weekly, larger time frame yen. Okay. We've come up to these highs here, and the yen has kind of pulled back a little bit. But, where are the next levels? So let's go down to the daily and look at that. Below current price, unless you get down to like this, let's go to this 240 for example. I'm going to show you something. There's really not a lot of fresh demand in the yen. Okay, I know it's just been soaring, but it hasn't. It's gotten to a point where, notice down here. So I'm glad we're looking at this. So we're looking at a large time frame chart of the yen, the dollar yen. Okay, daily chart. What you're always going to see is in big moves and big trends, the fresh demand levels that are always in the bottom half of that trend. Okay, so let's say if we just eyeball this big uptrend here, this big move up since October, right, and we just cut it in half, there's plenty of fresh demand levels down here, but there's hardly anything up here. Okay. The only place where I would say we have anything, I wouldn't call it fresh demand, but at least on this time frame where you feel comfortable buying, is this level right here. Prices just touched the level on the first retracement and took off. There's probably still a lot of buyers there. Some bank is buying right there. So that's down at right about 90.85. Okay, so that's down about 90.85. So there's room below. Now, what do we have above? So let's put a horizontal line across the top. Scroll over to the left. Well, we've got this right here. I don't even think we need the whole area. Let me get rid of these lines. And let's make sure that this current rally up into there is the first time back. While we're on this chart, that the next set of levels is going to be, a bit higher. So if I scroll over, right, I guess so. And remember, we did it from the levels. We didn't do it from here, so you can see we're just kind of hitting that thing. I would say if we go up there again, I'd feel very comfortable shorting that because there's really not a lot below. There's not a lot to stop this from falling. What I would not do is be buying anywhere near current price. Okay? Any questions on that one? Okay. So watch that level up there. Let's go back and map it out. We're looking at almost 100 even. And level goes up to about 100.90. Right there. You put a stop just above that if you're gonna bet to the short side. No, it sounds crazy to think about shorting the yen, but look at the fresh demand levels below. Look at how clean and clear the rally is. Look what happens towards the end of the rally, towards the end of an uptrend. You always see this wide and whippy action. Okay? When larger time frame trends are about to change, you almost always see that wide and whippy price action. All right. What's another market we're getting wide and whippy price action in lately, the last few weeks? The equity index markets, right? Yeah, fresh is good. I see a couple questions there on what is fresh. Fresh is a very key odds enhancer that I would probably never take a trade without it. It's pretty simple. Just making sure price, once a level is created, okay, until price comes back to that level, the level is considered fresh. So we want to find levels where we have not had any pullbacks. Now, this one up here, as you can see right in front of you, we've had 2 pullbacks already. So so when that happens, what we want to see is, because we can be more objective than just, like the trading books say, how many touch counts, right? We can be more objective than that. What we want to do is look at how deep did price rally into the level. Did price rally deep into the level, suggesting there's not a lot of sell orders left? Or did price just touch the level and turn, suggesting there's tons of supply there, right? Some bank has a lot of yen to sell. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at that. I see your comment there about the monthly. Let's take a look. Right. So I think you're saying the yen just broke a trend line. Are you talking about a downtrend line on the monthly chart? Yeah. So I hear you on that. I'm someone who does not subscribe to that school of thought at all. Trend lines, I don't want to take this too deep, but trend lines, everybody draws trend lines different. If you're buying breaks above certain trend lines or shorting breaks below certain trend lines, yeah, even long term, all that means is if that's a buy signal for someone, then their strategy has them buying after a huge rally in price. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, any piece of information you're going to use or anything that's going to affect your decision-making process, make sure it focuses on where the buy and sell orders are in that market. Period. Okay. So I think we're good on the yen there. We've taken a deep look at the dollar. We looked at the NASDAQ. We took a deep look at the yen. I think we're pretty good there for the larger time frame. We can certainly look at, like someone want to look at the Aussie. Let's go to the Aussie. 93 would not be demand. Who's Aaron? I see you're asking that. Yeah, 93 would not be demand. So I want to look at the Aussie. Do you want to look at the Aussie US or? Oh, that was Aussie. Let's see. Oh, that was a different one. I want to look at the Aussie New Zealand. Yeah, let's take a quick peek at that. Now the supply of this one's pretty easy. We just need to look a little bit deeper to find the demand. So on the weekly, what we're seeing here is that even though price is down here, we've been here a number of times before. In the past, you've had some significant rallies off that area. Okay. But now let's go down to a smaller time frame and get some tradable levels. Yeah, so Jack, the goal here is to catch the turn in price. Remember, everybody out there is taught to wait for an uptrend, series of higher highs and higher lows, and then buy, or a series of lower lows, and then sell. That's not how banks and institutions trade. Okay, that's how retail traders trade. So what we want to do is use our supply-demand analysis to figure out where banks and institutions are buying and selling, because that's where prices are going to turn, and we want to enter our positions there. So yes, we are trying to get in on the turning points. Okay, we want to identify market turns and market moves before they happen. Absolutely. Okay, because that's the only way to keep our trading low risk, high reward, and high probability. There we go. You should be able to see the screen there, Don. Diana, yes, yes. With each successive pullback into a demand level or supply level, the orders that are making that supply or demand are being filled, right? Every time price goes back into a level, more orders are filled, which means, yes, the level's getting weaker and is about to break. But when it breaks is not when we want to enter the position. We want to get in on the pullback. It's actually pretty simple. I'll map it out for you, or show you on one of these. When I see a good example, I'll show you. Anyway, let's take a look at this chart. We've got some nice levels in this market. In fact, let me just map a couple of them out here. There's that right there, but there's even a closer one. Normally I wouldn't be comfortable going this close, but this level looks fine, and we already have some evidence that there's some pretty strong supply here. See how price has tried to come back to this level a couple times over the past week and has not been able to. Okay. Yeah, the Euro Yen's been a big mover. Okay, so watch for this level sitting just above 121.40. And now I'm going to put a horizontal line across the bottom of the chart, not because that's demand, just because I need a reference point. So let me go back. Here we go. Oh, I need more data. Sorry about that. We'll find the demand level below. Okay. Okay. Chart's getting a little time to catch up there. Why don't we try to come back to this in a little bit? But we do have some supply above. I would think that this is going to continue lower after a rally. Okay. All right. So let me go back to the list here. I know we've got a bunch. Aussie yen, and there's a bunch that want to look at the pound against the dollar. Let's take a look at that. So again, keep in mind that the dollar chart suggests, yes, it could fall a little bit. It's not in the demand zone now. It was, but there is some upside room there. Great level we've been looking at in the pound for a while, and we've kind of we haven't really drawn lines in yet because we said let's wait till price gets close to that. Well, it's actually on its way. So, and I'll tell you that the best trade we've ever been a part of here at FX Street, or even in the articles, was the pound years ago. That multi-thousand point drop. That came into a beautiful level before it fell. Looking at the pound always reminds me of that. All right, big level here, but it starts at 156. Call it 157. Call it 157 right there. And when I look here, yes, 157 is perfect. Yeah, and there's more supply above. So this is a fresh level because price has not come back to that level yet. So that just means the odds are high. Risk is low. Risk is a funny word though, because a lot of people have different definitions for risk. If you put the too big a position size on this, the risk can be really high, right? So risk is really a function of position size and really your ultimate loss. You could drill down into this, and if we do that here, again, you're probably going to cut, you'll definitely cut some of the risk out. So we've got our supply here. What about our demand? $154.60, you're saying? Let's see. Yep. Yeah, so this would be the demand we're looking at here. Now, when I'm going to draw these lines, may look a little different to you. Let me just explain why. So prices are trading sideways in this area, right? Supply and demand appears to be in balance. So, and then all of a sudden there's a rally. But why did I draw the top line where I drew it? Because I think a lot of people would draw it up here, but I brought it down here. Okay. And I'd probably even take it lower, but this is fine. So what you want to focus on when you're drawing your lines, or even when you're identifying a level and starting to draw your lines, the first thing you should do, Luca, I'm glad you said that, or Jake, I'm glad you said that, because I would say what you're saying is number 2. So I want to make you aware of this. Absolutely figure out where the majority of trading is. But the first thing you should look at when attempting to draw lines is, where's the origin of that move? Where did prices really take off from? Right? Where's that origin? So that's why these lines are right here. If you look right here at this red candle and then this green candle, that's where prices exploded higher from. So what does that look like behind the scenes? You've got buying and selling going on, and then all of a sudden that last seller sells. There's still a significant amount of buy orders or demand there, and boom, price takes off. So that's the origin of that rally. We want to make sure that we've got that covered in our level here. In other words, because it was down here, I don't need to put my line all the way up here. Okay, let's bring it down to here. All right. So when we map out the pound against the dollar, here's our supply above, and here's our demand below. All right, there's 156.75 on the upside. Here's 154, call it 40 on the downside. 154.40. Yeah, so good question there. We don't, let's see. Why don't we cut through candles? Yeah, so we're not really cutting through candles. When I say don't cut through candles, what I'm saying is when we're identifying the demand level below, to find that we want to go left and down until we find the level. What we don't want to do It's going to be hard in this chart. Well, to find the supply. So above current price, we're going to find supply. Here's the level. We're not looking at this information over here. In other words, we're not going to cut through these candles to get to this information to analyze. In other words, we don't cut through candles. $153. $153 down here, you mean? Or down here? Okay. Yeah, exactly, Jake. That's why we don't do it. Okay. Up from 150. Yeah, I don't see what you're looking at 153. Are you talking about this right here? You talking about that level? Okay. All right. So I think we'll move on. So I think we're fine. We're good with the British pound. All right. We've got our this is where we're buying below. This is where we're selling above. And let's move on. I'm just kind of reading back in the chat as much as I can. I always miss stuff in the chat. I feel bad about that, so I want to try to get all that in. All right, let's take a look at another market. Just a second for the charts to come up. So the Canadian, I don't want to spend too much time here, but when you look at the daily and the weekly, it is declining into an area where it looks fairly attractive. It's a big area. I mean, I'm not in love with that. I'm probably not going to take that. I'd be more interested in the shorts in the Canadian. Specifically looking at this time frame here. So larger time frame trend is down. Okay, which means we want to be shorting rallies. We've got three areas of interest. Got this one right here. And then we also have this area right here. Now we're on a 240-minute chart. Not in love with this one, so I'm not going to choose that one. Okay. Yeah, let me blow this up. We'll find some demand on this time frame too. I see. So we are kind of coming off this level. Okay, that's fine. Hopefully get a little bounce up to this guy right here. So this one comes in at about 101.10. $101.10 to 101.22. Yeah, bought the circled area, so you're saying, I think you're saying up here. Is it the one you're talking about, George? Okay. Yeah, so I wouldn't do a whole lot here except wait for prices to rally, and you can short one or both of these. They both seem fine. The lower one's going to have a little bit better profit margin than the upper one's going to. So for swing trading, yeah, so good questions on swing trading. When I say swing trading, we're not looking at we really haven't looked at any charts lower than a 4-hour chart. You may have looked at 160-minute here today, but that's primarily what I'm talking about, is sticking to larger time frames like 4-hour, daily, weekly charts, and capturing bigger moves. When we say swing trading, it's kind of there's a lot of definitions for swing trading, so it is important that we define it. We're talking about is trades that last longer than a day. You're probably talking, a few days to a few weeks, which is totally fine. Okay. No, you can use options, but you could just take them as the same way you would take a day trade. You're just taking them in the larger time frames. There's nothing wrong with using options. I'm a big fan of options, a huge fan of options. Okay? So yeah, let me map one out for you. We would, normally we do this to most of these. I guess sometimes I assume that everybody's been to these webinars many times, but it's great when we have new people, and I'm sure we do much more than I think. So for this level right here, this area right here, so notice price came down all the way to this. You see this area right here? So here's a level. We wouldn't use this as a demand level because of this big wick to the downside. But if you look, there are some buy orders there. I mean, price is getting hung up here. It's been here for 2-3 days. But we do have some fresh supply above. So we'd be looking to sell short at right here, 101.12. With a stop at 101.26. Okay. So entering at 12, buy stop at 26. Adjust your position size so you're not losing more money than you're willing to lose. Your target is going to be just before this pivot low over here. There's probably some buy orders sitting down there, so we want to get out just before that. I would say right before all this. We always put our target line right before the big cluster, and this is a great example of a swing trade. Okay. So your risk reward there is outstanding. Make sense? Well, I would call it outstanding, but I'd call it attractive. We've had much better ones than that. But I wouldn't be worried about this demand over here because price has already gone through it. So the opposing level that would concern us is not fresh. The level we'd be entering into is fresh. That's how we get the odds stacked in our favor. All right, let's move on. We've been was going to look at the dollar Canadian, and it's probably consumed most of our time. That's okay. Oops, there we go. Let me get the chart up here. Yeah, that's Aaron. That is why. It's because it's not fresh. Okay. All right, let's look at Euro. One thing I want to point out that I've been kind of pointing this out for quite a long time. I don't know what happened in the chart, but we've got a demand level sitting right in here. There's that. We've talked about the 124 area for the Euro. I thought prices would get there a little bit quicker than they are. I mean, they're certainly falling, but we'll see. We have gotten hung up on some demand levels. When we go to the smaller time frames, we do have some supply sitting not that far above. Let me map it out. It's right here. 1 and 2. So we've got a level sitting at 133.45. 133.45. Okay. Yep. And here's our larger time frame demand below. Okay. And this is really all you need to see. So we always want to. The first thing we want to do is quantify the larger time frame supply demand curve, which is what we've done here. So now we know where our larger time frame, and to do that, we look for larger time frame, fresh demand and fresh supply, not levels that have been used up. Make sense? Let's see. Let's go over to the, pop over to the S&P real quick. I see your comment there. It's this level right here. Someone's saying we're hitting a level in the S&P right now. Let's see if they know what they're talking about. Looks like they do. Alright, so yeah, the S&P just popped up to, again, the first fresh level of the day, right? First fresh level of the day. There's this level here, and this little level here. They're small time frames. This is a swing trading session. You know, we're looking at a 5-minute chart, so be careful with that. How do you draw a level? So for basic questions like that, which are great, just go back and watch the recordings. There's plenty of simple lessons on that. No, we don't. Let me just get the chart up here. Okay, let's go back to the euro. So there's our levels. But look where price is. Price is right in the middle. So is there anything else we can do, or do we just sit tight? Obviously, there's always a position we can put on in options. But what about in the smaller time frames? You might look at this supply level above and say, there's a great level, it's short there. But no, it's not a great level. Look at this wick to the upside there. That makes it not a good level at all. In fact, it wouldn't even qualify. Wouldn't reach our odds enhancer score. Okay. I would say when you're managing a stop in a swing trade, now some of you are going to disagree with me, and that's okay. There's more than one way to do it, but I am not a big fan of moving stops. Okay. If you put the trade on at a level, and you've got your stop and your target, I'm a big fan of just leaving that alone. I suppose you can, but if you do make a change or you do move your stop to break even or something like that, make sure it's a rule. I would almost say, I probably shouldn't say this, but I've often thought, what's more important, having rules or what the rules are, and with the ability to break the rules. So I think having rules and sticking to rules is almost more important, or equally just as important as what the rules are. So if you're going to have a move stop to break even after you've achieved half your target, make sure it's a rule. I'm not a fan of doing that. I just like to just kind of leave it alone. So get it. And I'm pretty confident if you look back in a lot of your history of all your trades you've taken, you're going to see that as well. You'll see that if you just left your trades alone to do what you planned on them doing, I bet most of the time they went and did that anyway. And you probably got out too early, right? Something like that. Okay. Trevor, no, let's see. Yeah, Trevor, no, let me see what you're asking there. No, as long as you're doing the analysis right, you should be able to put the level in ahead of time. Okay. All right, so Euro's falling here. I just don't see a lot of fresh stuff here. This area right here is probably going to, I wouldn't be surprised if the Euro turned here, but I guess it almost hit that. Kind of made a new low. That'd be more of a short-term trade anyway. This is not where we'd probably want to initiate a swing trade. I'd wait for prices to come a little bit lower. Let me go to a 60-minute chart. And there's that level right there. Okay. What we're talking about is this area right here. I'm not on the swing trading side of things. I just don't think there's anything really to do in the euro at the moment. We need prices to get moving a little bit. Right? If you look at where the supply-demand zones are in these larger time frames we have, the answer to me is pretty simple. So if you compare where price is, okay, in this time frame, in that time frame, so where is price in relation to the larger time frame supply demand are at the turning points? It's kind of right in the middle, right? Kind of right in the middle. There'll be plenty of day trades. I'm not worried about that. But it's kind of right in the middle. Okay. So what do you do when supply and demand are in equilibrium? Right? What do you do? Do you buy a lot or sell a lot? No, you sit tight. Okay, I was just fixing a cord here. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go on here. Okay. Yeah, so again, just because price is in between those two larger time frame levels, I was just reading back in the chat. There's plenty of day trading opportunity. Plenty. If I don't want to end the session without letting you know that. Right? Even here. I mean, I could show you tons of trades where we're shorting against a level like that, and it's fine for that short-term income. All right? There's a little level sitting just above in the euro. If this is a short-term trading session, we'd probably be all over that. You can see today's low is right into this area right here. So there's plenty of levels every day on the small time frames. Not a problem there. Okay. Yeah, so big picture, let euro come into those levels, smaller time frames. You're right in the middle, so that means you could be a buyer and a seller as a short-term trader. Gold, let's see. Gold dropped as we forecasted. Yeah, that gold really plummeted. Let's take a look. Boyke, it depends on your definition of scalp. Do I short-term trade, like short-term day trades? We're in for, a few minutes, sometimes less. Yeah. I'll take 1 or 2 in the morning. Yeah, so I think you probably, if you're trading gold and looking at gold, you probably saw what gold came into. Where is it? Is it in this time frame? All right, big giant area here. Hopefully gold rallies a little bit more, but now look at gold. Now it looks like even more of a short, not because it fell, just because you have these super nice fresh supply levels above. Yeah, long-term gold, we've been bearish for a while. That continues. Meaning shock, I see your question there. Once you've quantified larger time frame supply and demand levels, then you could go down and do proper day trading with the odds stacked in your favor. Meaning, if you've identified the levels on a larger time frame, and let's say your price is near the larger time frame supply level, right? Larger time frame supply demand curve, then as a short-term trader, day trader, whatever you want to call it, you're going to be looking for 5-minute, 2-minute supply levels that you're going to trade against. If you're near that larger time frame supply, or at the very least, make sure you're not at or near that larger time frame demand. Okay? Okay. All right. So anyway, I know we're a little bit past our time slot here. If you have any questions, you can certainly send me an email at seiden@tradingacademy.com. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of what we focused on today too is the curve. Right? You have to map out the curve. Yeah, I would just continue to, keep shorting gold at the supply levels like we've been doing. That's what the chart is telling us to do. There's a better one lower, Jack, but below that low. Okay. All right, sounds good. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks again. You can always, again, send me an email if you have any questions or comments. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.